Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tossing the textbook aside and stepping right into the lab of Dr. Chem. We've got a complete cinematic experiment lined up for you. We're finally transitioning from those dry, foundational whiteboard equations of electrochemistry straight into the buzzing, hands-on reality of building actual working batteries.
But before we jump into calculating voltages and mixing up chemicals, I really want you to think about this fundamental question. How exactly do we take a totally natural chemical reaction between metals and liquids and basically force it to do work for us, like, say, lighting up an LED? Keep that idea right in the back of your mind as Dr. Cam guides us through the build today.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover electrodes, your cathodes and anodes. Then calculate our cell voltage, explore the vital salt bridge, physically build a Daniell cell, scale it down to some DIY handheld batteries, and finally, lock in our crucial lab safety precautions. Let's get to it.
Starting off with Section 1, electrodes, cathodes, and anodes. These are quite literally the absolute most basic building blocks of any battery. You really can't build a circuit without them.
To really grasp electrodes, we first need to define the galvanic cell, which is the exact type of device we're building today. Simply put, a galvanic cell uses a spontaneous redox reaction to convert chemical energy directly into electrical energy. It does this by physically separating the reactions into half cells, which literally forces the electron transfer to travel through an external wire.
So check out how the two functional halves of our cell operate. Over on one side, you have the negative anode acting as the electron donor. That's where the metal is actually losing electrons, so oxidation is occurring here. On the flip side, we have the positive cathode acting as the electron acceptor, meaning reduction is happening. The electrons literally flow like a river from anode to cathode.
Now, if you ever find yourself getting confused in the middle of a lab setup, and trust me, we've all been there, just remember this brilliant, kind of bizarre little mnemonic device, an ox and a red cat. Anode is oxidation, and reduction is cathode. Seriously, it is an absolute lifesaver when you're trying to wire up your circuit correctly.
Moving right along to Section 2, calculating your cell voltage. Before you start assembling any actual metals and liquids, we need to do a little bit of math just to make sure our cell will actually generate power, you know? Let's crunch the numbers.
So, we have to look at a table of standard reduction potentials to figure out which metal is better at competing for electrons. Look at copper. It has a potential of positive 34 volts. Zinc, on the other hand, sits way down at negative 0.76 volts. Because copper has the larger value, it basically wins the chemical tug-of-war and forces zinc to be oxidized.
To make the math actually work out, we have to reverse the half reaction with the lower potential, which is our zinc, turning it from a reduction reaction into an oxidation reaction. And remember, when you flip the reaction, you've got to flip the sign of the voltage too. The golden rule here? Your final calculated voltage must be positive to prove the reaction is actually spontaneous.
So let's do it. When you reverse the negative zinc potential, it becomes positive 0.76 volts. Add that to copper's positive 0.34 volts, and you get exactly 1.10 volts. This is the total spontaneous energy of our classic zinc-copper battery. If you wire this whole shebang up perfectly under standard conditions, your voltmeter should read right around that 1.10 mark.
Okay, Section 3, the vital salt bridge. This is often the most overlooked component, but it's absolutely essential to the whole process.
You might be wondering, is this little piece of gel or paper soaked in potassium chloride strictly necessary for our build? Like, couldn't we just connect the metals with a wire and call it a day? Well, I posed this question to you. What actually happens if we remove it?
Well, you'd get immediate failure. As electrons leave the anode, a massive positive charge builds up in that beaker. Meanwhile, a huge negative charge accumulates over at the cathode. This charge separation creates a sort of opposing potential that instantly stops the flow of electrons dead in its tracks. The salt bridge swoops in and allows inert ions to migrate between the beakers. This maintains electrical neutrality, so the current can just keep on flowing.
All right, Section 4, building a Daniell cell. With all that theory and calculation out of the way, it is finally time to get our hands dirty and build a real setup with Dr. Chem. Let's visualize this.
You can trace the entire circuit right here. Notice how the electrons flow strictly through the external wire from the zinc anode to the copper cathode. That's the current we actually tap into.
While that's happening, ions are simultaneously migrating through that U-shaped salt bridge. Anions head to the anode, cations head to the cathode, and together they maintain a perfect continuous electrical loop.
Now, when setting up your Daniel cell, Dr. Chem's #1 rule is meticulous preparation. Take step 1, for instance, using sandpaper to physically clean your metal strips. This is absolutely crucial, because if you don't remove those oxide layers, the chemical reaction is blocked right at the surface. After that, you submerge them in their respective 1 molar sulfate solutions, bridge them, and hook up your high-resistance voltmeter to ensure you aren't drawing too much current, which would totally throw off your 1.10 volt reading.
Moving to Section 5, DIY handheld batteries. We've built the classic laboratory setup with all the bulky beakers and solutions, but let's explore how we can shrink this technology down into handheld alternative batteries.
Did you know you can actually construct a basic battery using everyday stuff you probably have in your kitchen right now? The juiciness of a simple lemon or a potato acts as a perfect, naturally acidic electrolyte. It brilliantly facilitates the flow of electrons between a standard copper penny acting as the cathode and a zinc galvanized nail as the anode. It's the exact same chemistry we just did in the lab, just packaged by nature. And let's look at how this basic principle scales up into some seriously cutting-edge technology. Researchers are building highly advanced units like this hydrogel Leclanche cell. Inside this tiny 20 milliliter vial, you have a zinc anode and a manganese dioxide cathode suspended in an auger hydrogel separator, which basically immobilizes the liquids. It's a miniature breakthrough, specifically designed to safely and reliably power internal medical implants, like pacemakers. How cool is that?
Finally, we arrive at Section 6, crucial lab safety precautions. Because we're dealing with reactive chemicals, flammable materials, and actual electricity, we absolutely have to address safety protocols before you set foot in the lab.
Following guidelines from lab experts like Kintex Solution, active monitoring is totally non-negotiable. The electrolysis of water can produce highly flammable hydrogen gas, which means open flames or sparks are strictly forbidden in the lab, period. You also need to watch closely for unexpected temperature spikes or vigorous bubbling. Those are surefire signs of a short circuit. Oh, and never ever touch energized electrodes with your bare hands.
And here is a critical point for cleanup. Never mix acidic cleaners, like nitric acid, with alkaline cleaners, like sodium hydroxide. Doing so can trigger a violently dangerous, highly exothermic reaction right there in your sink. Remember, safety doesn't just stop because your data collection is over.
As we wrap up this explainer, Dr. Cam leaves you with this thought to chew on. We've seen how a simple salt bridge in a pair of metals can power an LED, and how an auger hydrogel can literally run a pacemaker. So what undiscovered combination of materials will revolutionize our energy grid next? The principles you've seen today are the very same ones that will unlock the future. Keep experimenting, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next explainer.